So yesterday and the day before, you took a look at all the possibilities and all these theories that surround Roanoke and the Lost Colony. So let's take a couple more looks at some additional theories and maybe possibly rehash on some of the ones from your CSI investigation that you conducted the past 2 days. So first of all, I want you to take a look at this video that I posted for you. This is just a simple recap of what happened, and this absolutely coincides with the notes that you've already taken. This is just a reminder of the events that unfolded from 1585 to 1590. So before we start with reviewing these theories, here's what you're going to do after you've watched this video. You're going to review the theories that were presented in this slideshow, as well as from your notes and the CSI activity. And once you do that, you're going to create a Flipgrid response where you answer and explain what you think happened to the first colonists of Roanoke. And to do this, you're going to explain with evidence and cite examples from the text that you read from our CSI activities. After you've recorded and uploaded your responses to Flipgrid, you're going to watch and respond to 2 other peers at a minimum, and you're going to respond to them. So in this example, you are not simply saying, hey, I liked what you did, or nice job, or I agree, I disagree, but instead, the whole idea is to figure out where they feel the theories are the most realistic, and then explain respectfully and academically whether you agree or disagree, and then why. So let's take a look at theory number 1, and this is that there are no survivors. And so there's 2 ideas that could have happened. The first being that colonists were killed by the Native Americans, or that colonists were killed by the Spanish. And when we think about this, we have to consider what the relationship looked like between both groups of individuals and the English at this time. And if you remember, when we first learned about Roanoke, the first attempt to settle the colony wasn't great. We had soured relationships between the first indigenous peoples and the first English colonists. And that was a result of stealing their food and really taking advantage of that group of people. So the possibility that there were hostile relationships absolutely could have existed. The second idea is that colonists were killed by the Spanish, and absolutely this could have happened as well, because we had, the English had a relationship with the Spanish that was solely competitive by nature. They were competing for land, for wealth, and for power. And so we know, because of Sir Francis Drake and sinking the Spanish Armada and the entire Spanish fleet of ships, yeah, there wasn't great relations between Spanish and English people. And so, yeah, again, that's something that possibly could have happened. The second theory that we're going to look at is that the first colonists of Roanoke, these English people, were absorbed and became part of the Native American community. And so one of 2 things could have happened here as well. So maybe the colonists went to live with the Native Americans because the Native Americans realized they were not being successful. They were starving. They did not have great shelters. So maybe they were empathetic and they took over and included those people. And then through marriage and through just adopting them, they became part of the Native American tribe. Well, yeah, that's possible, right? Absolutely. Especially because there's documentation hundreds of years later that shows that there are actual people with blue-eyed children, which is not a typical Native American physical trait. Then there's the second theory that, well, maybe they're absorbed by Native people, but in this case, maybe they were captured and enslaved. And again, that's definitely a possibility as well, because when we think about the hostile relationships that existed, certainly people who are more trained in the area, who know the land, yeah, they had an advantage. And it's possible that they could have captured these people and forced them into slavery. The third theory is that these colonists got lost at sea. And again, the colonists could have left because it had been quite some time since White had returned. Maybe they thought that they they were forgotten. Maybe they thought that they were left behind to fend for themselves. Maybe they thought that White had died. There was no communication going back and forth. And so there is absolutely a possibility that they left to go back to England. So what happened to them is the question. Did the ship hit bad weather? Did they sink? Did they drown? Was the ship captured by a Spanish ship? And then these people were possibly tortured or killed. Again, all of these are very strong possibilities. We know that the English were feeling helpless at this time, so sure, maybe they left. We also know that there aren't great relationships between the Spanish and England, so yeah, that also could have happened. There's another theory which might be a little bit more far-fetched, and that's that there's a split or a division in the community. And this split community theory is our fourth theory. And if you remember, we have the first colony who comes to Roanoke, doesn't do so well. So we have the second group who comes in, and they are looking on the bay of the Chesapeake, and the captain refuses to go in. He says that, hey, the water is just too shallow. I'm not going to take the chance. Instead, we're going to go a little south, and we're going to end up settling and living on this island, Roanoke Island. So there's this thought that maybe the note is left for Croatoan Island because some people left and went there. And then some people possibly went to the Chesapeake Bay, to more of modern day Jamestown. Again, there's not a whole lot of documentation to support this theory, and one would consider, why would they want to split up? Wouldn't that mean that fewer people were protected? Isn't there strength in numbers? Again, remember that there are women and children here, so is that likely? That's up for you to decide. The last theory is really probably the most far-fetched theory, and that is a little bit more fantastical, a little bit more fictionized, and that's this idea of the white doe theory. And there's a legend that says that Virginia Dare, the first child who was born in the Americas, was raised by the Croatoan people. Well, there's nothing about that that is fictionalized or fantastical. That could have happened. But here's where things get a little dicey, if you will. There's an old medicine man, they say, who loved her, and he wanted to marry her, but she refused. And because he had magic, he turned her into a white deer. So like we said, this is kind of, far-fetched and probably very unlikely. So here's what you need to do now. Now that you've finished listening to this information and you have gone through your CSI notes and visited your notes on that information, I'd like for you to record your Flipgrid response. So make sure that you're picking one theory and what you think really happened to those people, and explain why you feel that way. Once you're done, you're going to watch and respond to at least 2 other peers' responses.